Welcome back to the channel. We're going to be doing something a little bit different this time. It's going to be a pre-war radio. This one from about 1937-38. It's Cossor. It's a beautiful set. It's come from a customer. I've not plugged it in. It says it's arrived to us. I can straight away see that the tuning drive isn't working because that's just spinning around very merrily. And unfortunately, the actual dial on this one has lost quite a lot of its paintwork, so it's a little bit void of station names and that sort of stuff, but the customer just wants us to repair it electronically, so we're not going to go into too much with the cabinet on this one. We're just going to have a quick look at the actual radio itself. So I'm going to spin it around, and what I like about Cossor stuff, as you can see on the back, especially this early stuff, always has a really nice big label on the back laying out where all the valves are. So it's a really nice piece of kit to work on. Even these screws are nice and loose, which is nice. So let's have a quick look inside the back. Let's say I haven't been in here yet. It arrived via a courier for a customer. So carefully put those down there because they are the original screws, which is quite unusual because most often go missing. Take the back off. We'll have a quick look in here together, and then we'll get back to the more sort of traditional camera view of just looking inside, but I thought I'd just pop my head in this time and say hello. Take them off there too. Right, here we go. Let's get that one out of the way because it's got the customer's details on there, and as is most of the case in sort of earlier, especially quite basic 30 sets, it's a big box of thin air in here basically. This is a nice big loudspeaker. Assuming that's just something, well, that's mains wire all wrapped up in there. In the sleeve of an old shirt. Perfect. So, slightly overkill on the mains lead design at the minute. It looks like a piece of cooker flex. I don't quite know what they thought they're going to run on that. But anyway, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pause the video, we'll just get this out on the bench, and I'm going to have a proper look. Alrighty, so we've got the back off, and it's actually on the bench now. So what we're going to do is to actually just take the chassis out of the wooden cabinet. And usually this is I've only seen it on this particular Cossor, and they may have used it on others, but I've done one of these recently, and they have like flying leads coming out for the aerial and earth, and I don't think I've ever seen any other set actually use that with these little labels on there that sort of say aerial and earth, which I think is quite unusual. I don't know why they didn't just fit sockets on the back, but hey ho, they didn't, so we've got to just work with those for now. So I think what I can see is a couple of bolts here, obviously, and is there anything else under there? No, it's these two bolts here have got to come out. Oh, there are a couple at the front as well. These are all really loose, which is really handy. There's one missing there, so we're going to take these out. Even the speaker's on a plug, which is super handy. You can just take that out from there. Lovely. So that's removed. So what we're going to do is just undo these bolts, get the knobs off the front, and then we'll whip the whole chassis out. The chassis is out of the cabinet, and I'm just going to have a quick check to make sure there's nothing untoward missing. It all looks like the valves are there, but obviously we don't know if they're any good or not yet. It's a really simple radio. I mean, it's a two tuned circuits. It's a TRF set. It's not a superhet with detector, and this is the output valve with the rectifier here. It's a triode output, so it's got it should sound really nice with its triode output stage there. It's not a PX4, it's a M41P or something like that, which is an indirectly heated triode. So if that one's good, fingers crossed. Otherwise, that might be a little bit tricky to get. I might have one in stock, if not. But the other valves should be fairly easy to get hold of if we need them. The tuning drive that I mentioned earlier that is kaput, you can see here's the end of it. There's the string, and it just snapped, and you can see that there's the drum that moves the vanes of the tuning condenser, and that is directly connected to what I call like an aeroplane dial. It was known as an aeroplane dial at the time. So that's directly connected to that, and there's various wires getting caught up, but the actual tuning itself isn't going to be too much of an issue to sort out, so we'll get that done. Quickly spin it up here on its backside, have a look under here. And then again, wow, not much has been done to this at all. The guy said it was last used around about 20 years ago, which isn't that long ago, really. It's got the original cardboard box, filter capacitor, electrolytic capacitor in there, and that's quite rare to see one working with that still in it, but that will obviously be going. The customer's not having to restuff. This is just going to have sort of new components hidden underneath here. You won't see it once it's back in the box. So that's going to go. I mean, all these condensers, capacitors will go, even if they did sort of test okay. We give a 2-year warranty on all our restorations, or minimum of a 2-year warranty on our restorations. So we're not going to let it go back to a customer with old capacitors and that sort of stuff in there. We'll just double check some of these resistors. We'll go through, clean all the switches. We'll do the volume control. But one thing I will just do first off, there's little point carrying on too much further, and if the mains transformer's had it. So I'm just going to test the mains transformer just to see what we've got. I'm going to take all the valves out. We're just going to double check what we've got low tension wise. Should be around about sort of 4 volts. And then we should have some HT, or well, just a high AC voltage. We won't get any sort of DC, because we'll take the rectifier valve out. But we'll just check that the actual transformer is doing as it should do before we start going too far into the actual restoration. Just going to check the voltages from the transformer to make sure that they're roughly where they need to be. It's really easy on these early valves because I've got such big pin sockets. You can just plonk your test leads into the actual hole. So first one I'm going to check is the low tension, or the heater, part of the transformer for the rectifier. So I'm just going to, it's through the limited supply, but I'm going to pop it on. I can see up on here we're getting 5 volts, which is about right, because obviously it's not loaded. There's no the valve will have a 4-volt heater, but it's about right because it'll be loaded down with a quite substantial heater on that one. Next one I'm going to test is going to click that off. As you can see, the meter's gone back down to 0. We'll check the low tension on the other valves, and that should be 4 volts as well. Pop that on there, and let's say that's 4.8, which is fine. Obviously there's actually, in fact, there's I've left the dial bulb in, so that's what's drawing some of the power there, but that's a good indication that everything's where it needs to be. So the bulb's working on there, which is fine. The last one I'm going to check is the sort of raw AC coming off the transformer, for which will eventually be the HT for the radio. So just turn it off again, and we plonk those into here, on there, and then again pop the meter up a bit, put that onto the highest setting, because I'm going straight across the whole transformer. So it's probably going to be, it's 350, 350, that sort of thing. So we're going to look at about sort of 700 odd volts coming out of there. So yeah, there we are, 716 volts. Take one of those out there, and then drop it to an earth point. Take that one, that'd be easier, and that should give me around about 350 volts, 360 thereabouts. And so we know that winding is okay. And we'll take the other one out. Can't get it out, it's stuck in there. Well, let me just pause the video while I try and get that lead out. Okay, I pushed it in there a bit hard. So this is the other side, so earth that one down. And there we go, and again 360 volts for the other side. So good news, we know that the actual transformer is outputting the right volts. I could test the output transformer, but I've got spares for those. That's not going to be too much of an issue. If that is has failed, we can replace that. But power transformers are always a bit of a tricky one if they go. You can get them rewound. We have rewound them in the past, and we have got spares, but ones for these really early sets can be quite tricky. So now I'm happy that the actual transformer is doing as it's supposed to do. I'm going to go through and start recapping it, and then we'll sort of be able to get a bit of power on it and see what it does or doesn't do. The recapping is pretty much done. They're all in where they should be. You can see we've replaced those electrolytics here. I've doubled up on here because it was only got quite a small reservoir condenser, and this will do quite nicely for that. There's the actual smoothing condenser. I need to tidy up this wiring here, which is obviously at some point the heater wiring has given up the unequal struggle. So I'm going to need to redo that, and that's what these are. These are the heater wires, and they've just been sploshed on, so we need to deal with those because they're going to be carrying quite a bit of current. And also there's some braiding here that takes one of the Let me just come back a bit and zoom in on there. Takes the up to this top cap on this valve up here, and that's all loose, and it's sitting right next door to this little resistor here that's used for the heaters. So I need to make sure, because I don't want that shorting out on there causing issues. So I'm going to address that situation. That's probably just going to have to be clamped down. We can overcome that, not too much of a problem. Redone a little bit of the wiring up here. This is the original extension loudspeaker socket. Now on this radio, and a lot of early sort of 30s sets, they didn't use low impedance speaker outputs. This is high impedance, so this is basically HT on here. So you've got sort of 300 volts floating around on these pins, which people aren't expecting to be there now. So you could quite happily sort of, if you were to lean in the back of the set and touch these pins and touch the chassis, you get a bit of a tickle off that. So what I've done, I've removed those and replaced those up to here with modern little disc capacitor there for the tone correction. So that's what's gone up there, just to sort of tidy that all up a bit. So what I'm going to do is just get on with this wiring here, tidy that all up, and then we'll come back and hopefully we'll be in a position to fire it up. The recap and sort of wiring is pretty much done. What I do need to concentrate, I just noticed that the volume control is, I had to put some freon oil on here because it seized up fairly well, but it's not, if you can hear that, it's not, the meter's, it's flicking around on the meter a bit as well. This isn't like a traditional style, I mean the controls is the potentiometer, but it's this sort of radio uses a variable gain to bring up the RF signal on the first valve. It's not like a traditional volume control. In a later set, we're actually altering the audio signal getting to the output valve. This is actually just altering the gain of the set. So the output valve is running at full amplification all the time. It's just this that's reducing the signal getting to it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to strip this down and see if we can work some magic on this. Right, so let's open this up and have a look inside. A little screwdriver. What can we do? Small enough to get under there. Just carefully lift these tabs back. So there's that one. That's that one. There's 4 little tangs on the top here just to bend back. Ow! Watch your fingers. I know I was going to do that. Just try not to. Okay, and I will get a small pair of long nose pliers just to straighten these up. Carefully does it, because obviously you need these to go back down again to refit it. And if you bend it too quickly, you might find that they snap off. Steady, steady. Okay, and then here we are inside. Oh, it's really sticky. It's jumpy. And you can see they use it just like a variable resistor. It's not a potentiometer on this one. This leg's been cut off. They literally just take this end, goes to earth, and it's just been used as a variable resistor from 0 to whatever it's supposed to be. I'll have a look in a minute. But yeah, I just need to give it a clean up. It's quite nicely built. The wiper here doesn't directly touch on the carbon underneath, which is a pretty good way of doing it, because it doesn't wear the carbon off. Under here is the carbon track. I have to get a bit clever, didn't we? Just zoom in temporarily for a second. So here's your carbon track in here. And basically then, rather than this directly making contact with the carbon and eventually wearing it away, it actually just puts pressure on a small sprung piece of steel that just touches it as it goes around. It's super clever, but that's why it's grabbing, because there's a little tiny leather pad there, and that's grabbing on something. So I need to give it all a good clean up. Let me just quickly grab the service data and we'll have a look at what value it should be. There's only one in here. Let's have a look. There's normally in the megs. Where are we? R2. It's not on that one. it's a little bit lower because of course it's not a volume control, it's altering the gain. So that one's 12k or there or thereabouts. So I'll just quickly get the meter, have a quick look on there, put on the 20k setting, get a couple of clips. Here's another. So we'll just put those onto here. Initially I'm just going to check the whole, not yet 12k on the node. Wow, that's exactly 12.08. Well, that's really good. And then check the, yeah, so that's actually working just fine. It's just, you probably can't hear it, but it's making a sort of farty noise when I turn it. That little leather pad is jumping around. So I'm going to get some isopropyl alcohol just to clean up any old mucky grease and stuff that's in there, and then I shall re-lubricate it with some stuff that we use here. It's like a mixture of various bits. So I just squirt a little bit of isopropyl alcohol on there. I'll zoom back out again for a second. That's better. Give this all a clean, get rid of all the old grease off. Some people just go in there with something like a deoxit or something, and I found on these earlier ones, later ones are fine, but early ones, because they've got this slightly different construction, they don't always respond particularly well to that. So I'm going to do, I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of Vaseline on there, or lithium grease or something, just to lube that up. It's squeaking. So have I got anything here? No. So let me just pause the video while I go and grab some of that. Right, so I'm just going to go a tiny bit of, just the tiniest bit on that track. Instantly, that's made the whole thing a lot smoother, a lot easier to use. These ones with this little bit of strip like this are normally really reliable, and this one's proven to be so as well. So that was really simple to do. It's all cleaned up. What I'm going to do now is just put the back on and we'll give it a final test. So just going to tie it all back together. As you can see, I've got a tiny little dribble of oil just on that top shaft, just to make sure that stays nice. And that's a million times better than it was before. It doesn't squeak. And let's just quickly finally check on the meter. You guys can't see it, but I can. So I put it on there, and we should, at that point, should be at 12,000 ohms, dropping it back all the way back to 0. Perfect. Right, so I'll get that back in the set. Then it's just what I've got to do after that. Not too much else to do underneath. Just finally clean these switches here. But these are, then again, these are really robust and proper springy switches, so it's going to be a fine little bit of of emery cloth under there just to get them up to where they should be, and then we can get some valves in and put a bit of power on it. Oh, before I put the power on, I do want to just sort out this mains lead, so I'm going to get that off and do that after we've refitted this volume control. We're now pretty much ready to get the valves back in and give it an actual test with the speaker connected. Just to finally just go back over what we've done. You can see this is where that loose connector was that goes to the top cap of the one of the valves. That's all nicely soldered back in now. It can't come loose. You've got these 3 points on here where it's soldered, so that's nice and secure. So here's where the electrolytics have been replaced, and all that wiring's just been tidied up. This is the heater wiring. I try and keep the heater wiring as close to the chassis as possible. You don't really want all AC floating around when you've got audio signals running around. So that's all kept fairly close as possible to the chassis. These ones here disappear off to the dial bulbs, which we'll need to do excuse me, when we get on the top. Right, so it's a matter of getting it over and we'll get some valves in. So back on the top, new mains lead is in. That's held in with a modern sort of P-clip there, plastic nylon P-clip. The cable comes out the side, so that's all fitted. I fitted this nice sort of cloth looking one. Here's that lead that came through from underside, from where the braiding was going to touch where the heater wires were. And all we've got to do now is this little bit of wire coming out here is for the dial bulb, which I've removed at the moment, because what I've got to do is spin it around. Oh, there's the old mains lead. Oh my god, the bench has got someone slung a grenade on it. Let's turn it around, get rid of all this old wiring, chuck that in the bin. So what I need to do now is take all this off and get access to that tuning drum so we can get that cord, which is down here, refitted. I've removed the front plastic. It is actually Bakelite lump plus the glass. This is what the tuning cursor directly attaches to. Is basically you spin this knob here, and this then turns like so. It's one of the simplest ones to work out, so it's not going to be too much of an issue to do. I use nylon. Some people use different cords. I've always had really good with nice strong nylon line, which is what I'm going to use on here. So I'm going to get on with that now and come back once it's all back together. Yeah, as I hope, nice and simple. So we are back working again. I've just blobbed a little bit of nail varnish on there just to stop those knots from slipping. But it's lovely, you know, nice and precise, nice and slow, steady. As you can see, as I'm turning that, it's turning the vanes of the tuning condenser. Albeit a filthy one. It's filthy dirty, so we've got a bit of cleaning to do yet. Okay, let's get some valves in and give it a test. Well, the tuning's all back in and working nicely. I've just left the dial glass off for a moment. I just noticed on the side of this dial bulb holder, it's actually cracked open down the side. It's split. So what I'm going to do is just solder that up so it doesn't split anymore. Well, there it is, all soldered up. It's a quick, simple job, but why replace it when this little tiny bit of solder on here? Drop some flux into the joint, cleaned it all up, and to solder that split up, and it's good for another 100 years. That's the dial bulbs rewired and back in with a couple of new bulbs in there. As you can see, the valves are back in. What I'm going to do now is just, after all the work, apply the first bit of power. Obviously I need to connect the speaker to here, so I'm going to have to move the cabinet a little closer, or actually what I might do is just extend these with some croc clips so I can leave the speaker in the cabinet where it is, and we'll get some power onto it. Right, for the first switch on, I've got the chassis, also the new mains wire on, all connected up through the limited supply. And I'm also going to monitor the HT up on here for the first time. So I've got the dim bulb engaged. Bring up the power slowly. I'm just going to monitor, see if anything happens on there. That's good. So 1 volt, 2, group it up. Cool. So the HT's coming up. That's looking fairly healthy. That's good. So what we're on now, mains of 180 volts, slowly dropping as everything starts to wake up. Current starts to be drawn, 130 milliamps. You can see on the little display at the back here. We just monitor it with. Okay, so 170 volts. Let's just drop it a little bit more. So the HT's now come up to 315, 314, so around about right for the HT. I can see these valves warming up nicely. Thing to be mindful of, obviously, on these really early sets as well, these top caps aren't the grids as they are on a lot of later sets. These are HT. And yeah, so just be careful if you're poking around. Oh, I can hear something from the speakers, my phone making noises. Well, that's good sign, the output stage is working. Right, so I've got an aerial plugged in the temporary lead here. But bring a bit more power up. Right, so we're now sitting at 340 on the HT, which is bob on where it should be before it goes to the output valves and things. What we got on here? Oh, nice big hum. Well, that'll be for the gramophone input, which is, whoa, that's full. Then again, as I said before, this set doesn't have a volume control as such. It alters the gain of the first stage of the valve. This is a variable mu valve, so it alters the gain of this one. So if you did want to plug a gramophone in many moons ago, you would have had to have one with a volume control built in. That's what they would have been on the back there for. Anyway, we're now back on the medium wave, full gain. I can get it to oscillate. But not a lot else. Just flicking up through that band. So that's really annoyingly picking up the phone, which is a pain. Okay, so there's nothing there at all. So, as I thought, I mean, it's, you know, it's an ancient old set. The chance of it working first time are going to be remote. So what I'm going to do is we'll flip it back up, have a little bit of a poke around. First thing I'm going to do, actually, before I do that, is just see. They're all getting fairly warm. Yeah, well, that one doesn't feel very warm, actually. I'm mindful of that, but probably best part of 300 volts on there. Let's have a look, shall we? What we got on there? 250 volts on the top cap of that one, which is about right, and this one, not quite so much, yeah, about 90 volts. So yeah, just something to be mindful of if you're poking around in the back of these. Don't be caught out thinking they're going to be low voltage or grids. These are at full, well, that one's fairly close to full EHT. EHT? HT, sorry, we're not working on tellies today, Robert. Right, okay, let me spin it up. We'll have a look underneath and see if we can find what the problem is. I had a quick poke around underneath and all the voltages were where they needed to be, or thereabouts. I could get some signal coming through if I started popping an aerial connection just onto this valve, but nothing from the first stage. No, actually, this isn't working. I've just gone across and tested the heaters and it's open circuit. I did just quickly, you may be able to see, I just tried to see if it was a bit of a dodgy joint on the pins, but I've tested that and that valve is OC, so I need to go to the valve store and pick up a Cossor MVS pen or something very similar. I thought to show you the valve store. Not very often I show it actually, so it's nothing elaborate, but it's boxes and boxes. They are sort of sorted out. I'd love them to be much better sorted out than they are, but they're all in these old mushroom crates. They've all been tested, so we know they're good. That's as far as we did go. But there's trays and trays and trays of, they're all sort of put into various categories and types. And so we go back, I've got another whole load more here. And there's some more that we've recently got down here, so we haven't sort of sorted through yet and tested. There's another couple of boxes there, and then we've got two enormous big boxes here for these ones are to be tested. So yeah, I'm going to have to dig around in here and find that replacement valve. I popped the replacement valve in and still no joy, and then I had a bit more of a poke around underneath, and it seems that there is an open circuit coil in this can. Now I can see that someone has been in here already. It's obviously had some work. As I said, initially I don't think much had been fiddled with it, but then I've noticed there's a lot more PVC wire. This is a replacement wire, so someone's been in here. So let's just have a quick look inside. I'm going to put you on a tripod so you can have a look as I open it up. Right, I'm just going to go around the edges here where these have been peeled over. They're not very tight because, as I say, someone has been in here before. So that one's loose. I'm just going to get that piece there. It looks a little bit wavy. I don't put too much pressure on the pack, so I don't want it to break. Right, I think those two are out. So fingers crossed. Stuck on this side. Donut. Of course I've got a lead coming out of there. Push that through. I love these early sort of mid-late 30s coils, all these sort of 30 sets. Right, that's out. So yeah, so definitely someone's definitely been in here because this has been just sploshed on here, and it's quite. There's nothing wrong with this PVC wire. The problem is, over the years, as all PVC does, it's obviously quite a while ago since it was done, it goes quite hard, so it ends up putting quite a bit of pressure on the joints and things inside. So, look what I see. Let me zoom up on there for you. Dangling in thin air. There it is. Perfect. So one assumes it goes to there. I will just double check the wiring diagram because it could go to there as well. Well, fingers crossed, this might be a winner. I was really panicking that there was going to be something wrong with the coil and it's going to be game over for now until we try and find a replacement. But yeah, what a beautiful thing these coils are. Beautiful basket wound coils there, and on the top there you've got these coils wrapped around the opposing direction. Beautiful things. And under here, it's quite a clever design by Cossor because this has the switches, the wave change switches on the bottom. So that's a good way. Basically, it's just shorten out sections of the coil. So medium wave is at the top, I should imagine, and then you've got the long wave coils here, which are these long basket wound ones, and the medium waves at the top. Right, I'm going to go and have a look in the service data and see where this little wire here should go. Back in with the coil again, just quickly, I've just noticed there's another wire gone here as well. So whoever fiddled with this last time wasn't very careful about putting it back together. That's the bottom of that long wave coil, so that should be connected to the earth. And as I was checking the service diagram, just to sort of do some readings, I noticed that should be earth and it wasn't, so I need to reconnect that one to there, and this one, it goes to here. Okay, so the coil is now rebuilt as it should be. Thankfully it hadn't broken in here, it just pinged off this end here, so that's soldered on, and this one's been reattached, and also that heavy old bit of PVC I've now replaced with some silicone, so it's nice and soft and doesn't put too much pressure on joints and things inside the set. So get it back in its can and I can get it back in the set, and we'll give it another test. So the moment of truth, the coil is back on. It's this one here that was causing issues, so that's all been popped back in there. The new silicone wire, but slightly too long. I need to trim that off, but it's just been popped in for now just to make sure it's working. Once I know that the actual machine is working as it should be, I'll just go back and tidy up all the wire underneath. It's a bit sploshy at the minute, but I'll get tidied up before it goes back. That's the old valve that had the open circuit heaters. Bench is full of valves. This is a new replacement MSV pen, Cossor valve. So right, moment of truth, let's just give it some juice. Slowly bring it up. I'm on medium wave. Let's give it a bit of an aerial. Plonk that into there. Nothing fancy, just a little bit of wire plonked in the end. People say to me, why haven't you got a 200-foot aerial stuck out the front to see if everything works? And the reason I don't bother is because most people don't have a 200-foot aerial at home, so they're normally going to stick out with a bit of damp string hanging out the back. Right, so let's see what goes on now. So a little bit low on the bolts, bring it up to full. Aha! That sounds promising.
You've got more to see.
Okay, Prometheus?
Yes. Yeah.
Ah, panic over. So all that worry about the coil possibly being open circuit, that's now been, well, I know it wasn't, we've repaired. We managed to find those two bits that were broken, but we're all good to
describe your working day.
5 Live coming through quite happily.
Really? Got a bit, or maybe a bit.
And there's a lot of background noise. The workshop at the minute is obviously quite well lit, which I need for the filming, but it's TRF set, so so it sounds really nice. I always like TRFs.
Oh, by this stage, this is unbelievable. Looks all round.
Brilliant job. Well, it's nice to know. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to turn the chassis back over. I'll just tidy up all of the wiring where I've just replaced this can. I've just popped it back in just in case I needed to get back in there again. But now I know it's all working. I'll go back and tidy all that soldering up, clean all these valves up, give the top chassis its final sort of rub down, get the glass back in, and we get it back in this case and give it its final test. Well, I popped the glass back in, albeit it's void some of its station names, but and you can just see we've given the chassis just a sort of light clean up and just clean all the valves up, got all that horrible old sticky tape it just looks a lot nicer, and you don't get it, you know, sticky tape and hot valves doesn't really mix. It ends up being a bit stinky as the sellotape starts to melt. So that's all gone, all nice and clean. So what I'm going to do now is just get it back in the cabinet. So here she is, all back in the cabinet, all looking beautiful. So the customer's not having anything done with the cabinet, it's just an electronic restoration on this one. But let's just see what we can get on here. Not ramming on medium wave. I've got a little aerial attached, nothing fancy. It's about, I don't know, 10 feet of wire dangling out. I've got the lighting, might look a little different because I've turned the LED sort of panels off, which light the workshop. Just got some good old-fashioned incandescent bulbs running in here for now, so it doesn't affect the radios too much. LED bulbs come in a little bit tricky on these old sets. So let's bring up the gain a bit.
Down the side of the town, which is sort of elevated, but I'm just looking at a map here. You know, you look.
The sound from these TRF sets is always beautiful, especially when you've got a triode output as well. It's not hi-fi by any stretch of imagination. They always sound really, really throaty and warm.
Prevention was built in 2016 and
Simon Jordan. Mid-mornings on Talk Sport. Hard-edged, hard-nosed, hard to beat. The radio program where the only thing they agree about is the name. Highly charged, highly opinionated, highly recommended. Jim One.
I mean, they're just a beautiful, beautiful thing. They really are. And we're slowly, obviously, losing the medium and long wave station. I think Radio 4 long wave, as I said in earlier videos, that's disappearing next year in the UK, which is a real shame because it's been around for a long time. So it's a shame we're going to start losing some of these stations. But what I've been building recently are these little Bluetooth modulators. So I'm going to be mentioning these in the video coming up. So with the onset of medium wave and long wave slowly getting switched off, I think we've got to have 2 stations left on medium wave in the country from the Nationals, and we've got obviously Radio Caroline coming out of Essex that sort of covers Norfolk and Suffolk and that sort of southeast area. But these little Bluetooth modulators, I'm going to be, I will have these for sale, and these literally just plug directly in the aerial socket on the back of an old medium wave radio, and will allow you to basically tune in the Bluetooth. So keep an eye out for that. I'm going to do a video about that in the not too distant future. Anyway, for now, I'm just going to...
The conversation saying you might be replacing...
Sit back. I'm now going to grab some lunch. I'm going to sit and listen to this for a while, and we'll go back to the customer. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll catch you on the next one.